Beneath the thundering roar and rolling mist of Niagara Falls, there lies a place far quieter, yet infinitely more terrifying. It's a tunnel, small, narrow, and nearly forgotten by time. But the locals know it. They call it the Screaming Tunnel. And they say if you listen on a quiet night, when the wind falls silent and the water stills for just a moment, you can hear it too. A faint, blood-curdling scream echoing from within the darkness. Our story begins over a century ago, when the land around Niagara was a peaceful farming community. The tunnel itself wasn't meant for anything sinister. It was built under the old Grand Trunk railway line, just a simple stone passage designed to drain floodwater and connect nearby fields. But simple places often hold the darkest secrets. Over time, this passage became a vessel for whispers, for rumors, and eventually, for a horror that would stain its stones forever. The legend that most people whisper tells of a small farmhouse that once stood not far from the tunnel's entrance. A family lived there, a man, his wife, and their young daughter. They were ordinary people, leading ordinary lives, until one terrible night when tragedy turned their home into a blazing inferno. The farmhouse caught fire. The flames spread with terrifying speed, devouring wood, hay, and everything in their path. The father, in a desperate attempt to save his family, tried to get to his little girl. But in the smoke and chaos, she became separated from him. Choking, her small screams lost in the roar of the blaze, she ran in a panic out into the night. Her tiny hands clawed through the darkness, searching for safety, for any escape, until she stumbled into the tunnel. She must have thought she was safe there, hidden from the fire and the terror. But the fire wasn't done with her. A stray spark had caught her dress, and now, deep inside that cold stone passage, the flames began to consume her. Her screams rose, sharp and full of agony, echoing off the damp, unforgiving walls, until finally, they faded into silence. When dawn broke, the fire was gone. The farmhouse was a ruin, and so was she. The only trace left was a set of small, blackened footprints near the tunnel's mouth, as if her final steps had been burned into the earth itself. Since that night, it's said her spirit never left. For decades, travelers passing through Niagara have shared stories of strange happenings near the tunnel. They speak of sudden, cold drafts that blow against them, even when the air outside is perfectly still. They mention a smell of smoke that appears without warning, acrid and sharp. And most famously, they talk about the scream. The legend goes that if you stand inside the tunnel at midnight and strike a single wooden match, you will summon her. You'll hear the faint sound of a girl's cry, starting as a whimper, then rising in pitch, raw and filled with pain, before being suddenly snuffed out by an invisible wind that extinguishes your flame. Of course, some say it's just an old ghost story, a trick of the tunnel's acoustics or an overactive imagination, but too many people have heard it. Too many skeptics have walked into that tunnel laughing, only to run out pale and trembling, unable to explain what they just experienced. In the 1970s, a group of local teenagers decided to put the legend to the test. They drove out to the tunnel after dark, laughing and daring one another to go deeper inside. Finally, one of them lit a match, just as the story dictated. For a moment, the flame flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. And then, without any hint of a breeze, it went out. The air turned instantly, bitingly cold. One of them swore they heard a girl's voice whisper, "Help me!" They didn't wait for a second invitation. They ran, tripping and screaming, and when they finally emerged back into the moonlight, one of the boys had a faint, red burn mark on his arm, though no fire had touched him. Even Hollywood couldn't escape her presence. In 1983, the horror movie, The Dead Zone, based on the Stephen King novel, filmed a pivotal scene right inside the Screaming Tunnel. During the shoot, the crew was plagued by bizarre technical difficulties. Cameras would fail for no reason, lights would flicker and die, and the temperature would drop suddenly. Several crew members flat out refused to go back inside after hearing what sounded like a child crying from the far end of the tunnel, a sound that, mysteriously, never appeared on any of the audio recordings. The locals will tell you, she's still there. They don't describe her as an angry or vengeful spirit. They say she's just lost, trapped in the endless, looping echo of her final, agonizing scream. Some believe she's waiting, hoping for someone to help her find peace and cross over. Others say she'll never rest, bound forever to the cold stone walls that were the last thing she ever knew. But that's not the only version of the story. There's another, one that's darker and far more twisted. In this telling, the little girl didn't die in an accidental fire. She was murdered. Some say her own father, an abusive and drunken man, flew into a rage one night and chased her into the tunnel. When she tried to hide from him in the darkness, he doused her with gasoline and set her ablaze, silencing her screams and his problems forever. Others whisper it was a different man, a local farmer, or perhaps a stranger just passing through, who lured her into the tunnel with a friendly smile, committed unspeakable acts, and then burned the evidence to cover his tracks. The police at the time never found any proof, but in a town that small, some secrets don't need proof to be true. They just rot, right beneath the surface. Whichever story you choose to believe, one chilling truth remains. Someone died there. A young life was extinguished in terror and pain. And whatever happened in that tunnel left behind an energy, a presence, that simply cannot be explained away. Today, if you visit Niagara Falls and ask the locals, they'll point you down a quiet, winding road near Warner Road. You'll find the tunnel, built from weathered limestone blocks, just barely wide enough for a single car to pass through. During the day, it looks ordinary, almost peaceful. Just another forgotten structure being slowly swallowed by nature and time. But step inside, and you'll feel it. The atmosphere changes instantly. The air grows thick, heavy, pressing in on you. All the sounds of the outside world, the birds, the wind, the distant traffic, just disappear. You can almost hear the slow, rhythmic drip of water from the ceiling, echoing your own frantic heartbeat. Walk deeper, and you might notice a smell, faint at first but unmistakable. Smoke. Burnt wood. And if you're brave enough, or maybe foolish enough, to follow the legend and strike a match, you'll understand why people still fear this place. Because in that brief, flickering flash of light, you might see something moving in the shadows at the far end of the tunnel. The wavering outline of a little girl, her hair singed, her dress torn, her eyes wide with an eternal, silent terror. And when your match goes out, as it always does, the absolute darkness that follows will come alive with her scream. They say no one has ever managed to reach the end of the tunnel after hearing it. Most people turn and run, scrambling back towards the light. Some collapse right where they stand, trembling uncontrollably. And a few, they say, never speak of what they saw or heard in there ever again. But every year, new people try. Tourists, thrill seekers, ghost hunters, all drawn by the chilling mystery of the screaming tunnel. Maybe they think they'll be the ones to capture definitive proof on camera, or maybe they just want to prove the whole story wrong. But the tunnel doesn't care what you believe, because once you enter its darkness, the tunnel remembers you. And when you leave, you might think you've escaped. You might feel a rush of relief as you walk away, through the trees and back toward your car. But listen closely. If you hear the faint crunch of footsteps behind you when you know you're alone, dawn to turn around. If you feel a cold breath on the back of your neck, just keep walking. And if you hear a child's whisper right in your ear, a tiny voice pleading, "Help me," it's already too late. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of Canada's most haunted places. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown. Stay safe out there.